So we just covered a review for the Open Championship, giving you some confidence how well the Sweet Spot process did. So then when we come here and talk about the bucket system for the 3M Open, again, you'll have some confidence in using the bucket system. If you want to follow along with me, you certainly can on the cheat sheet. Again, there's a link in the description that will bring you to the cheat sheet where I do have a bucket system down there that you can go and select. So if you want to follow along with me, you can throw the same filters that I'm going to throw on here. We're going to go stat by stat, bucket by bucket. So last year is where we're going to start. And we're also going to cover the anchor buckets that go with these stats. So the first one are last year buckets. We're going to look at last year ones. Now, in order for it to be an anchor bucket, as we go through every one of these stats, the minimum here needs to be 1. The maximum has to be at least 2 or higher. It's got to be greater than 2. Let's put it that way. So you can see these first 5 buckets, we don't have an anchor bucket, but we do here with the last year 6s. Last year ones, actually all of these. So golfers who played the 3M Open last year. We do have 3 years worth of data because this tournament goes back to 2019. 2019, we can't use a last year, data source because there wasn't a 3M Open the year before that. So it starts in 2020. So it's 2020, 2021, and 2022. We're looking at top 10 finishers. How many of them had top 20 finishes the year before? That's what these buckets mean. Not so much top 20 finishes. I'm so sorry. What was their finishing position? And then depending on that is where we throw them in for the buckets. So having a top 20 finish, despite it usually being a bucket you want to select golfers from, has not proven to be so at this event. So it actually has a 2.63% success rate, which is insane. 2.63 is the lowest I've ever seen this bucket, ever. So it's kind of proving like this is an event that having a top 20 finish the year before does not equate to success the year after. And I'm really curious. I'm going to go back. I want to look at all of this really quickly because this is what we're looking at. Oh, I suppose 2019. I just told you we can't go to 2019. So we're looking at this column right here. You can see Matthew Wolff finished in 12th place. He was the first top 20 golfer from the year before. But you can see of all the golfers on the leaderboard right here, going down to 26th place, he's the only one that had a top 20 finish the year before. In 2021, we're looking at this column. Okay, we had Charles Schwartzel. He's the only one inside the top 10, and that's all that we look for with the bucket system's top 10. But Tringali was 16th, so too was Bo Hoag. And then we had a few guys down here in 25th, 28th place. But we're only looking for top 10 finishes because that's how we really target the optimal lineup. 2022, we're looking at this column here, 16th place. So, hey, you can find a 16th place guy pretty easy by following who finished inside the top 10 or the top 20 the year before. That's really crazy. So it's like a top 3 finish. Look at this. A winner. So Matthew Wolff won in 2019. In 2020, he finished 12th. In 2021, Cameron Tringali, I guess him and Charles Schwartzel finished 3rd the year before and, 16th place and 2nd place. 2022, Cam Champ finished 16th place. He won the year before. So, yeah, it is proving out to be just that way. I guess what we can do again is kind of look at who our golfers are for this week. I do have it sorted by marquee tee times, but let's look. Again, you can follow along with me on the cheat sheet. All you gotta do is put a filter on it, go to the last year stat bucket, clear everything out, and just select one. Who are our guys? Finau, Sung J M. I think those guys just alone are good enough to use. But then Grillo, Cam Davis, JT Poston, and it kind of goes down from there. I mean, Cam Champ is there. Interesting. Yeah, these names from here down, I don't trust. There's not even a name that's like, oh, that's a sneaky play. I don't trust any of these guys. It's really just these 5. So yeah, maybe this is a bucket that's kind of, maybe we pump our brakes on and I wish I had a website that we could just look like really quick. What were all the last year ones from the years before? Because I really don't want to go and sort through each one of these tabs just to see. But I think it's enough to caution us with last year ones. I think 0 to 2 is a really good projection. Now, I'm not going to talk about the rest of these buckets, but they're still 0 to 2. So whether it's last year 2s, last year 3s, last year 4s, or last year 5s, it's still 0 to 2. The best bucket to select golfers from would be the last year 6s. But there are 77 golfers there. That's a nightmare. Like, I don't want to look through 77 golfers. We can look at some of the top guys in this bucket. It does start with Cam Young, so maybe this is a good time to play Cam Young. But then there's Sepp Straka, Ludwig Aberg, Justin Thomas, Gary Woodland. Some really good golfers. And then it just kind of tears down from there. So definitely... the projection for this bucket, by the way, is 3 to 6, I believe. No, it's 2 to 6. That's the first time I've ever seen that. Again, this is included in the optimizer. So when it comes to last year 6s, I have 2 to 6 right here. So we'll see what the optimizer does when we start building lineups. But I think that's pretty interesting, to say the least. As we go to last week, the last week buckets. So again, follow along, go there, and we're going to look at projections. This is a little bit more interesting. So the 3M Open followed the Open Championship last year. I'm more interested in that year versus the years before, because it did not. In 2021, it also followed the Open. Okay, never mind. So 2020, it followed the Memorial, and then in 2019, it followed the Rocket Mortgage Classic. But starting in 2021 is when it started to follow the Open Championship. We had Louis Oosthuizen. Oh, by the way, there are 2 events that were the last week bucket, so that is included. So we're looking at Barracuda results as well, and it's good to say that because Louis Oosthuizen, and that's probably why this projection's high. How many golfers are in that bucket? 18. Okay, that's probably, yeah, that's a healthy number. High strength of field percentage too, by the way. So when you look at 2021, we had Louis there. We also had Mito, Brian Stewart, Ryan Armour. Those were Barbasol guys. I think it's a Barbasol. It might have been the Barracuda. I think it was Barbasol though. So you had 4 golfers that were inside the top 20 that played the week before. One of them being an Open Championship player. In 2022, I don't see anybody from, well, I'm sorry. Nobody from the top 20, either in the Open or the Barracuda, but definitely golfers who did play either in the Open or the Barracuda. I mean, that was your entire top 10? Yeah, it was your entire top 10 played the week before. So it like Finau, Grillo, and Sungjae played at the Open. Then you had Piercy and Han that played at the Barracuda. Then you had Hoagie Willett that played at the Open. And then you had these 5 golfers that played at the Barracuda. So that's interesting. The only golfer that didn't play the week before was Peter Malnati and really Cam Champ, I guess, and Lee Hodges. Those are the only guys that... Okay, never mind. One more. Adam Long. These are all your top 20 golfers from last year that did not play the week before. Otherwise, everyone else did. So I guess when we are looking at 2023, let's take a look at our last week ones. Oh, by the way, the projection for this bucket is 1 to 3. So we want somewhere between 1 to 3 golfers in our lineups from this bucket. And it has 3 of our 10K golfers. So I think that alone probably is a good indicator that we want one of these golfers in our lineup. I mean, Cam Young's kind of seeming like the guy I kind of like playing. I want to play Cam Young, and I don't mind playing Sungjae either. Looking at the rest, I mean, there's a healthy dose of 8K and above golfers in this bucket. There's 9 of them. Then it goes 7 and then into the 6s. So I probably ignore these ones. But hey, I don't mind playing any of these golfers. So yeah, I don't know. Definitely a good selection of golfers to select from. That's a 1 to 3 bucket, by the way. So you want somewhere between 1 to 3. And then everything in between is 0 to 2. Not super great numbers for projections here. 1 to 4 last week 5s. These are golfers who missed the cut either at the Open Championship or the Barracuda. There's 52 golfers in that bucket where they're normally 48. So the projection's pretty healthy. I think that's a good projection. So we're looking at our last week 5 buckets. And I mean, it starts with Tony Finau, your defending champion. He missed the cut at the Open. So too did Justin Thomas. So those are already some interesting names to consider. Seth Theegala, Keith Mitchell, Taylor Pendrith. Very interesting. And I'd probably just leave it there. There's a lot of low 7s and then 6K golfers to consider, but no one worth really talking about. Maybe Sam Bennett. Seems like an interesting play. But yeah, nothing that I'm going to concern myself with. But the projection still is 1 to 4, so maybe including some of these guys in your lineups, not a terrible thing. 1 to 4. I mean, I think 2 is pretty decent. You know, I don't know if I'd do more than 2. I think it's a good it's a good thing that there's a bunch of 6K golfers you can choose from. 38 of them, by the way, in this bucket. That's probably one of these 6K golfers will probably be inside the top 10, my guess. And then golfers who didn't play last week, that's a 0 to 2 projection. This is normally where we see 1 to 3, sometimes 2 to 4 not playing. Like, it's usually this bucket, last week 1s and last week 5s are usually your main buckets to select golfers from the last week buckets. So yeah, very interesting. I think last week 1s, last week 5s, and I think you still do that. And it doesn't matter if it's the Open Championship or if it's the Barracuda. You probably want a healthy mix of both. We're going to move on to course history buckets. Yeah, maybe not. I only say that because technically we only have 2 years worth of course history. So if I go to my bucket page, this is the engine that drives the sheet that I've been showing you. And when we look at like this top, each one of these top tables, you can see it has a name here, top 10, top 5. This is your tournament history tables. And you can see we only 2022 and 2021 because I want 2 years of data to create my course history with. I don't want just 1 year of data because obviously this tournament started in 2019, but I also want to see results from 2019 and 2020 before I start keeping track of course history. So 2 years of the data is definitely not normalized. What I ended up doing in the optimizers, I kept all my minimums to 0, but I did use the maximums when it came to the course history buckets. This is more of a safeguard so we don't select too many golfers from one bucket. And I think that's a solid way to do course history. But if you wanted to know the projections, again, you can see these on the cheat sheet, by the way. You can go to the course history buckets here and take a look at the cheat sheet that way, or just those course history buckets. But it's course history 1, 1 to 3, 0 to 2, 0 to 2, 0 to 2, 0 to 2, and then 1 to 4. So I rather not have any minimum projection. We can keep the maximums as they are, but let's just ignore the course history buckets for this year. Going into the next stat to talk about, I would say we go into the recent form buckets. There are 0 recent form golfers that have top 20 finishes, which I want to validate. Is that true? It appears so. What is this average? 32.6. Okay, yeah. So these are the right calculations right here. That's crazy. We have what? Technically, we have 0 golfers coming in with good recent form. Good recent form being like an average of a top 20 finish over the last 7 weeks. So that's super interesting. We have no golfers there, which means we just move on through. So we go to the recent form 2s. Recent form 2s, recent form 3s, and recent form 4s is where we usually see high projections every single week. It doesn't matter what tournament it is. So this kind of goes right in hand with what we've seen before. There's one concern that I have. So I don't have a concern 1 to 3. By the way, this would be an anchor bucket, so we can talk about that here shortly. Recent form 3s kind of gives me a concern. 2 to 4 is a very strict projection, and it requires you to grab some golfers. So I think what it really needs us to do is look at who are in, like which golfers are in that bucket to be comfortable playing at least 2 from. Currently in the optimizer, I have it set to 1 because I don't want 2 is scary. I'm not gonna lie. 2, it seems like a very high minimum, so I don't really want to do that. But we'll take a look. And then recent form 4s, 1 to 4 is a projection there, so I like those projections. And then it drops down for recent form 5 and 6s. 0 to 2 are our projections there. So let's talk about these 3 buckets here because they are anchor buckets to select golfers from. So how about this? Let's just start with the bucket that is the most questionable, which is the recent form 3 bucket. And it's only questionable because the minimum is 2. Can we make an argument to select 2 golfers from this bucket? We have 10 golfers 8K and above, which is interesting. As I see it now, I do believe we can make a lineup work with 2 of these guys. The 9K golfers here, I like. Sungjae, I think, is easy to select from. We also have a decent group of 8K golfers. So if we wanted to do a 10, 9, 8, like, it's really simple to do so. By the way, these 7K golfers are no slouches either. I like Pendrith. I don't mind Noren. I like Eckroat. I like Quest. Svensson seems like a decent play. Don't mind doing someone like Nick Hardy. I already said, Sam Bennett was an interesting choice. There's some names down here I think we can get to. So I guess maybe that projection 2 to 4. I think if I start lineups with Sungjae, I definitely want to make sure that I have 2 to 4. But I think I'm just going to keep it 1 to 4. So I'm going to do that when it comes to recent form 3s. Okay, now that we talked about that bucket, I mean, there's some good golfers there. Definitely consider playing at least one of them. Recent form 2s. Yeah, Cam Young, Hideki Matsuyama, just those 2 golfers alone. I like them. We also have some good 9K golfers here that, I talked about these 3 basically together, that they are the 9K golfers that if I wanted to play, if I want to choose a 9K golfer, these would be the 3 or one of the 3. And then pretty good representation from 7K on up, honestly. 1 6K golfer, $6,900. So recent form 2s, 1 to 3 I can get behind. I almost want to say 1 to 4, but 1 to 3 is good. Going to the next one, recent form 4s. This is a 1 to 4 bucket, and it starts with Tony Finau, which is really interesting. So there are several ways this week when it comes to the recent form buckets to build lineups with. This one I don't like as much. There's not that many 8K golfers and above, so choosing one from up here I think is more challenging. I probably think it's going to be one of these 6K golfers down here is probably going to fill out your lineup and count towards that one projection in the minimum for this bucket. But it could be 2 or 3 and it could be more, but I'm not as confident in this bucket. There aren't a lot of names. Kevin Streelman's very intriguing. $7,000. Yeah, course history is decent. 34. Probably just played it once though. Don't mind someone like Kevin Streelman this week. 7,000 by like bare minimum 7,000. That's again, like I said, very interesting. Okay. That covers the recent form buckets. Let's go ahead and talk about the salary buckets. So we kind of briefly went over this in the past optimal and GPP winning lineups. 9Ks, 0 have shown up inside the top 10 the last 4 years. So I mean 0 0 min max. There's a 0% success rate of having 9K golfers inside the top 10, meaning there's also a 0% frequency rate. 0 9K golfers were in the optimal lineup, but we already covered, the 9K range this year is pretty good. Where I think 2019 and either 2020 or 2021, we only had 5 9K golfers. We have 7 this year, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good 9K golfers compared to those other years. If you want to check that out, check out the Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineup segment that I went over, because we did look at some of those 9K golfers, and yeah, I think this year is a little bit better than previous years. But this 7K range, the 7Ks dominate the 3M Open. We have 41 golfers in that bucket this year, where we normally see around 39.25. 2 to 5 is the projection. So that's the dominant bucket out of all of them in the salaries, or I should say that's the dominant bucket for the salary stat. I don't think you have to worry about playing a 7K golfer. You're just naturally going to do so regardless. So somewhere between 2 to 5, I would just say 2 to 3, because if you go with 4, actually you could do 4 7Ks and maybe 2 10Ks. That might be the lineup build this week. Obviously, we saw it in Pass Optimal and GPP winning lineups. It might be a good thing to do this week as well. Although the 9K range is difficult to ignore, and so too is the 8K range. 8K range for me a little bit more so than the 9K range. And then the last bucket to talk about are the stroke chain buckets. So if you want to know what goes in the stroke chain buckets, there's a video in the description below that talks about the bucket system. Go there, go to the buckets, the stroke chain bucket portion of it, learn it there. Because if I decide to explain it here, it's gonna be long-winded, and we don't need to make this video any longer than it's going to be. So the only thing you really need to know is, if you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, again, link in the description. If I go to that cheat sheet and I go to the dream sheet, you're gonna be looking at this column right here, the stroke chain, the SG column, column B. Look at that one and sort A to Z. That's what you're gonna see for each of these golfers. Oh, by the way, make sure there's no other filters on like I have, so we can look at all of the golfers. So you can see this is all color coordinated based off the stroke chain bucket. So you will be able to know which stroke chain bucket it is just based off of the colors that go with each of the buckets. So stroke chain 1 is this dark green, stroke chain 2 is this light green, and stroke chain 3 is yellow. So when we look at projections here, 0 to 2 stroke chain 1, 0 to 2 stroke chain 2, 2 to 4 stroke chain 3, 1 to 3 stroke chain 4, and then 0 to 2 stroke chain 5, as well as 0 to 2 stroke chain 6s. So again, these are projections. Again, minimum projection, maximum. So when I say 0 to 2, you don't want to play more than 2. Or if I were to say 2 to 4, like the stroke chain 3 bucket, you want to play somewhere between 2 to 4 if the salaries allow you to do so. You have to look at the salaries for each of those buckets. If it doesn't seem like you can, then you obviously can't, and you're gonna have to lower your minimum projection. But yeah, max is 4. Looks like the min is 2, and it's not terrible for the minimum. Again, you can just sort A to Z on the stroke chain buckets. We don't need to open that up. Stroke chain 1, this is a 0 to 2 bucket, and we have Finau, Sungjae as your 10K golfers, and then it goes to Ludwig Aberg 9K, and it drops to the 7K and 6K range. I don't mind starting with one of these guys, and I also don't mind swinging in Ludwig Aberg here and there. I'm not a huge fan of these 7K golfers, but I'm not going to ignore them either. I'll play some of them. I just, like Ryan Fox, for instance, doesn't really super impress me. Like, I don't really want to force myself to play him, so I don't mind it, but I'm not going to, again, make it a priority. Stroke chain 2, I believe, was 0 to 2 as well, and as you can see, there's some golfers here that not super trustworthy. Some skill guys. I mean, I don't mind Grillo. I don't mind Sepp Straka. Patrick Rogers just lost in a playoff last week at the Barracuda. I don't know what that's going to do to his psyche, but if you want to play him, I don't think that's terrible. I like Austin Eckroat. I just stay away from Bo Hosler. I can't stand the way he swings a golf club. I will live on that hill. I'll live and die on that hill. I have no issue not playing Bo Hosler. Austin Eckroat, I like. Peter Quest, 7,400. That's a pretty good price tag for someone that played pretty decent at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Bennett, if you can drive the ball well here, like Bennett's, that's his main weapon as his driver, I think you can do well here. Ben Martin, decent ranking for me. Same with SH Kim. And then the other two guys down here, not terrible either. Strokes gained threes, we want somewhere between 2 to 4. So that's this next bucket. And it starts with Cam Young, Hideki Matsuyama. I mean, Hideki's always in strokes gained 3 because this is negative putting. And he's always a negative putter. But Cam Young is here, JT is here, Gary Woodland, Steven Yeager, Cam Davis. All of those golfers alone. If you wanted to start there, building your lineups, that's great. And you just got to add one more golfer and you satisfy the projections. Like Norman Vincent seems pretty, or Vincent Norman, I mean, seems pretty decent. I guess I don't mind Lucas Glover. Keith Mitchell seems like a pretty good price tag for this event. You know, he's won the Honda Classic, which is like a southern comp to this northern golf course. Like it's not too far-fetched to think that someone who won the Honda Classic before could win this event. And I know that's comp. Those are comps to this golf course. Strokes gained 4. This one also is a 1 to 4. Starts in the 8K range, or let me just double check. I think this is 1 to 3. Yeah, 1 to 3. Starts in the 8K range. Adam Hadwin, Seth Thagala, JT Poston, Mark Hubbard. Those are all 8K golfers and up. Then it drops in the 7K golfer or 7K range. If you wanted to, I guess, round out your lineups with these golfers, I think that's fine. I'm just not really pushing to get any of these golfers in my lineup. So I'll let the optimizer decide, you know, who from here do we want to just fill in our lineups. And then I'm not really going to worry too much about strokes gained 5 or 6s. Although we do have a ton of strokes gained 5s. Not so much 6s, but really interesting. So that covers the bucket system. We kind of briefly talked about the anchor buckets. There weren't really many to discuss.